like I said, that was my understanding. We can have the meeting. I just thought.
Yeah, I thought
Well, we should have
it too.
initially. if we
Place
thought it was
another
gonna be
job or
facilities
speak
as a whole,
710
and we could make
nearby,
it work, we were.
and press its
But
link
if there's other
button to
facilities
link
items,
them
we should just
together.
continue with that one,
That's fine.
because everyone can't make that night.
Okay, you can do that. You know, if you want to keep it, we can do it and try to.
We're live now. Sorry about the technical difficulties. So what are we deciding, Paul? Do you want to put your meeting?
It's a question of, do we want to have the meeting on Tuesday?
You want to have
The facilities meeting on Tuesday, and then we have a redistricting meeting the next day at Stroud, as you know. And I thought that the two were going to be merged. One was going to take the place of the other. That's kind of the assumption I had. And I was, well, I was surprised when I found it on the agenda. I don't know why I didn't see it before on the calendar, but we can have that as long as we go ahead and plan something for Tuesday, if that's the desire of everybody to meet on Tuesday.
Yeah, if there's other items to discuss, I
Well,
think we.
Well, we,
Again, when weren't we talking about having no, it was committee, we were moving it up a week because.
It was
correct, we ran
17.
Into the break.
Correct. We were looking at doing it tentatively on Thursday
On that
if we
Thursday,
needed.
right, okay, all right, so I just want to make sure, because we usually meet on Tuesday, so I just want to make sure we don't have to do it that.
We can talk about that, 'cause the interviews are starting at 5:15.
Right.
So we'll have a quick meeting. Okay.
Yeah, it'll be a quick.
Okay. Well, Mr. Chairman, if you want to have a meeting, we'll have a meeting. I think
I tell you what we would do if we had this meeting and that before the redistricting meeting kind of took over. The idea was to get an update on both the energy performance contracts and the phase one of the other work that's going on throughout the district. Get an update on
we'll
those.
be able to hear from Al.
We can still make that happen.
Then we probably should.
Okay, fine. No change it then.
There's no additions or deletions.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Were you going to do the report of superintendent? Okay.
Approve the minutes, please.
Oh, thank you. I'd like to, we need to approve the minutes of the regular meeting, of January 27, 2021.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Malachi,
Second.
second by Mr. Hagerty. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Approved. Sorry about that, Katie.
That's okay, thank you.
Okay, any report from superintendent from you guys? No? Okay.
Is Peter on, you know, deliver a report?
He's on.
Where's- I don't know if you wanted to talk or not.
He's on-
I'm here. I got a quick report for you guys, if you don't mind.
Okay.
A real brief update. Our initial round of conversations with FEMA was scheduled for next week. They had, one of their representatives had an unfortunate family situation, so they had to cancel. Rob and I are looking to reschedule that probably the week of break. We're hoping to have those initial conversations with FEMA. So we're still on track to try and get something done before the end of the month. Mr. Haggerty was just mentioning next Wednesday at Stroud, 6 p.m. is the ad hoc committee's redistricting meeting in person at the Stroud Auditorium. That will be at 6 p.m. And I believe that at least one of the consultants is able to attend in person to provide an update and present some or answer some questions from the community if they are there to have. I'm sure there will be questions, so we'll have someone there to answer them. If we get an updated plan or report from the redistricting consultants, I'll make sure I forward that along to the board prior to Wednesday. Just a reminder, the week after next is the winter break, winter recess, so we will not be in session those weeks or those days. The regularly scheduled board meeting that would fall on that Thursday is scheduled for Monday, February 28th. So that is an outlier. We don't normally have board meetings on a Monday, but since it falls during the break week, the board did move that meeting to a Monday. So just as a heads up to all those out there listening, we'll meet on Monday, February 28th. And the last thing I want to mention is that this week is National School Counselors Week. And I just want to give a huge shout out to all of our school counselors and social workers and everyone that works with students and our staff on a daily basis in our schools. Yes, our counselors are always going above and beyond for our students, but a lot of folks don't realize how much support they provide to staff members throughout the course of a day and a week. So thank you to all of our school counselors out there. We have an amazing team. We're very fortunate to have them here in Rome. And that's what I have for tonight. Thank you.
Peter, can I ask a quick question? Any luck with getting some technology at Stroud to stream the meeting or make it available online?
As of right now, we do not have that opportunity, but we'll continue to see if we can make something work. At the very least, we should be able to provide some form of video, but in terms of interaction, it's going to be very challenging.
All right, so are you saying that people will be able to observe the meeting but not participate in it?
That's our hope. At the very least, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Blake. Student board member report.
Hello, everyone. Our RFA Leo Club is they're partnering with the Rome Rescue Mission to do blessing bags for Rome community members around Rome. Auditions for this year's musical Newsies have come to an end. Right now they're getting callbacks, so we're still waiting to find out the cast. The Spring Heated Fusion staff is trying to put it on March 7th through the 11th. For those of you who don't know what Heated Fusion is an after-school and lunchtime activities where all the grades compete against each other. It's a good way to build school spirit, and a lot of the kids find it very fun. The Nightly News is starting a new segment called The Nightly Brew, where we're going to talk with a lot of other teachers and electives RFA has to offer. Since kids are starting to make their schedules, we thought this would be a nice opportunity for students to see the classrooms they're going to be in if they take these. Right now, we've done some of the art classes, we've done forensic science and orchestra, just so kids can get an inside look on those.
I'm sorry, what was it called?
It's the Nightly Brew, but it's still through the Nightly News. Brew, yeah. It's like a sit-down interview type style.
Coffee clutch.
Yeah, we have coffee mugs and everything. And for Valentine's Day, Mile United Nations, Spanish Club, French Club, and the freshman class are selling candy grams, roses, and cards. So kids can look forward to
Nice.
it. And that is all I have.
Okay, thank you.
When is the musical?
I believe end of April.
Thank you.
Okay, at this point, the meeting is open for public comment. If you wish to speak and have not already done so, please complete your comment card with Mrs. Drummond. Thank you. This is an opportunity to appear before the school board and express your views concerning agenda items and district affairs. We ask that you limit your remarks to 5 minutes. All public speakers are asked to refrain from making personal attacks for district employees and elected officials. Be advised that your comments do not enjoy the same privilege and immunity as statements made by members of the Rome Board of Education, that defamatory or obscene statements are prohibited. Please note that unless specifically indicated on the agenda, this time is not a question and answer period. There's no exchange of conversation with the members of the board or executive staff. However, if your comments require a response, every effort will be made to respond to your inquiry within a reasonable time frame. Thank you for your cooperation. And our first speaker is Kathleen Murphy.
I retired from the Rome City School District 24 years ago. And at that time, I could see how things were changing in our schools. Discipline was declining. Today's things have gotten worse. Foul language has been used against teachers and monitors. I've been told by those working in our schools their concerns about bullying, fights between kindergarten students, and the lack of consequences for unacceptable behavior. Approximately 3 years ago, I questioned the Board of Education about the bullying in our schools. And at that time, the superintendent stated there was no problem. This situation has been ongoing. Principals need to walk the halls of their facility and look into the classrooms to see what's going on. Having a boot camp is not a far-fetched idea today. Accountability and discipline needs to be a priority in our schools once again.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Elizabeth.
Yeah. So my purpose in coming here tonight was I want to shed a little light on a situation that a lot of school districts across the country are facing that I believe is an issue here in Rome, perhaps not particularly so, but still in common with other districts. That is a shortage of substitute teachers. I would like to shed a little light on why it is that qualified people choose not to pursue substitute teaching in the hopes that perhaps the board can take some steps to make the process more inviting and encouraging for future applicants. I'll start off by saying that I have quite a bit of teaching experience, both at a prep school and English as a second language school overseas, and as a substitute teacher, both in Phoenix, Arizona, and in the southern tier New York community of Corning, where I was an active substitute at the time of the initial COVID shutdown. My substitute teaching certification has since lapsed during the years of quarantining and long distance school, and there's very little need for substitute teachers and little chance for employment. So I did not choose to renew it, which in legal terms would make me an uncertified teacher at this point. Now, I have noticed that about 6 years ago, the board here took the positive step of opening up substitute teaching to people with a 4-year teaching degree without New York State teaching certification, which I think is a great step forward. But I still think there are a few things that discourage people who would be good quality substitute teachers from pursuing this. One issue was that when I first called the office to try to sign up, I felt like I was met with skepticism rather than encouragement. I understand that there are important needs to keep children safe. I understand that there are some adults who obviously can't be left around children, and I fully understand the need for background checks. That being said, I do have to wonder whether it's really a realistic situation to actually have somebody of that sort seriously attempt to become a substitute teacher, and if that's really a problem the board has ever had to deal with to any significant degree, to the point that perhaps the first reception to an applicant could be a little bit more welcoming and encouraging and giving people the benefit of the doubt until proven otherwise, rather than perhaps assuming, as it seemed like, this person might have ill intentions. Another barrier that I ran into was the fingerprinting fee. Now, I'll point out, I originally moved this part of the state to serve for a year in AmeriCorps, a service organization that requires fingerprinting as part of the ongoing background check. I've also been fingerprinted in order to serve in the Corning School District. And yet, because of how long ago it's been that I was onboarded in a different district, it appeared that I would still have to go through the fingerprinting process and pay a fee amount equivalent to my current bank balance due to 2 months of unemployment after the county cut the social service program that was my job in November, which I simply cannot afford to do. I would encourage the board to question whether it's really necessary to make prospective substitute teacher applicants pay the amount of $100, an entire day's pay, just for a fingerprinting fee that I understand is necessary by law to do the procedure, but is the fee really completely necessary for applicants who may be on a fixed income, as many prospective substitute teachers probably are? Beyond that, the remaining concern that I had that finally convinced me it wasn't worth it to pursue this process was a complete lack of knowing ahead of time what kind of reception I would get as a substitute teacher in the schools. It would be a helpful thing if people who are interested in substituting could find out more easily early on the amount to which substitute teachers have to deal with additional disrespect beyond that, as was commented earlier, full-time teachers have experienced. I've endured quite a bit of disrespect from students in my previous substitute teaching, and knowing whether I would realistically have to deal with a lot of that in this district, and if the school would have my back to a better degree than some of my previous schools have, would have been an encouraging step toward pursuing this. In closing, the point of all this was not to make it all about me, but rather I believe that there are other individuals out there with similar qualifications and backgrounds to me who might be interested in substituting, but may have been scared away by the initial reception that I got here. And I would encourage the board to look at what they can do to make the initial experience of applying a bit more welcoming, so that qualified people will continue to show up as substitutes in schools.
Thank you, Alyssa.
Thank you both for what you shared
Well,
tonight.
we have Mr. Moore Chief Operations here, so he can take it under advisement and just,
Absolutely, sir.
you know,
Well, actually, we did discuss at least one of the issues that
Yes,
I
we
asked
did.
personnel committee, and we'll be discussing that tonight in my update. So.
okay. Now, before we go to our work study, I have a statement I need to read. I need to address something that this board has been accused of recently, as well as in the past. micromanaging or getting into the weeds. There's not one of us up here that wants to do this, get into the weeds. However, we were elected by the voters of the district to promote and further the education of each student as well as be their representatives. All of us are very much involved in this community as volunteers to different organizations and causes, as well as in general community service. We're all accessible via email through the CSD BOE or our own school district emails, by phone, as well as running into people at grocery stores, drugstores, etc. We will get a lot of questions asked. Everyone gets answered through the CSD BOE. And any phone calls I get, I return them all. And I probably got a few hanging at home now when I get back. But what I do is I advise these people consistently to go through the proper chain of command. I usually don't step in unless and until there's an obvious wrong that has not been addressed up the chain of command. If at that point there's not been a fair resolution, then I will dig deeper to resolve. And if this is considered micromanaging, then I'm guilty. Which brings me to one item that Mrs. Ritchie has accused this board of micromanaging last week, or last meeting. Well, here are the facts. A very deserving student was initially denied entry into the Honor Society because of mistakenly submitting their paperwork to the wrong email address. The individual was told that the submission was late and that there are no exceptions. The parents went up the chain of command to the guidance counselor, the advisors, the principal, and the superintendent. They were told at each level that there was nothing that could be done. However, it was then discovered that there was another student who also did not submit the documents timely, who was allowed to be considered. At this point, I felt that more action on the part of the board was required. So again, if this is micromanaging, I'm proud to be labeled as such. I'd like to get to some other facts that Mrs. Ritchie left out of her statement at the last meeting. First off,
I'm sorry, John. I just want to make clear that this is your personal statement that you're making and not representing the board as a whole. Is that correct? Because I just know I'm just hearing it now.
okay,
And, I guess I probably would have preferred that we had a kind of a group discussion about it before you made a statement, but if you want to continue, that's fine. It's up to you.
okay,
But
I am going to
but I
continue.
just want to make sure that it's clear that this is something that you come up with on your own.
It's something that I come up on my own,
Okay,
and I'm sure there's other board members that would sympathize with this.
okay.
First off, there was a delay in appointing these advisors as the board had some issues above and beyond what I had already just described that we felt needed to be addressed. The board offered to meet personally with the advisors to discuss and work things out. We tasked Superintendent Blank to request this meeting. We were refused. We were very surprised that they did not want to meet to hear the board's concerns. Not only did they refuse to meet, they subsequently filed a union grievance. I thought that was odd, as I don't believe that they had the ability to grieve the Board of Education. The next point that Mrs. Ritchie brought up was that this delay, which was partially the advisor's fault, resulted in the forfeiture of 2 fundraisers. Now that was very interesting also, since last year, Honor Society had a total of 1 for the whole year. So I don't know how they already missed 2. And that fundraiser last year didn't happen until April, and we're only in February. Then we were told that we violated the Constitution of the National Honor Society. It clearly states that the principal appoints the advisors annually. Mr. LeBarrington did appoint them timely. He does it over the summer. The advisors chose not to perform their duties based on that appointment, even though other clubs did do that, until the board approved stipends for them being advisors. So it makes me wonder where their motivation is, for the betterment of these high achieving students, or is it for the money? I have many other examples, but I believe you all get the point. And again, I believe that our concerns could have been resolved if we would have just met in person, but we were refused. And I will leave it to the public to decide who's best. Thank you.
So again, I want to make a statement. I think a lot of the things that were discussed in the statement were addressed in an executive session, and I don't know if some of those things should have been disclosed during the reading of a public statement. And obviously, if there's disagreement between board members and administrators, it's probably best dealt with in a more private setting. I get that, we get a lot of attacks here on the board, both, in person and on social media, but I don't know that it's something that we should regularly engage in terms of responding to those attacks in such a public way. And I think that that's practice that we should probably try to avoid moving forward. And again, if we're going to have these types of public statements, I would prefer that we get some sort of heads up and as a board as a whole, that these things are coming, so that maybe we could have a discussion before these types of statements are read. I don't know how healthy that this type of back and forth is in terms of resolving disputes. So, I'm a little, I guess, shaken by what just occurred. And I just wanted to make sure that that's out there for the record. And I think that, again, this is something that we should probably discuss in the future in terms of how we proceed and act as a board as a whole, because we are here as a whole board. And when you read statements like that, it is something that some members of the community might interpret as the whole board feeling this way. And so I would just ask, and again, there was a statement that you read before the public comment that, we're not to engage in public statements that disparage, either members of the faculty or the district or us as board members. And I feel like that statement in part did exactly what you have admonished people not to do when they're giving their public comments. Again, a little displeased about what happened. I have a lot of respect for you, John, you know that. But I think in this particular instance, it might have been a mistake to read that statement before we had an opportunity to speak about it.
Okay, thank you, Alexi. Now our work study session. Our 2022-2023 BOCES administrative budget presentation.
Would you like us to stay right here?
Wherever you are
You can even
comfortable.
sit if you want.
Yes,
Yeah.
be comfortable. Okay. I'm Scott Goodwin.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sure, Rocky.
I'm Scott Goodwin. I'm the district superintendent, Madison Ida BOCES. This is Lisa Decker. She's the deputy superintendent. Of course, Sue Carvelli is our long-standing BOCES board member. I know she's been on this board as well. What we thought we'd do tonight is just walk you through a couple of things. First of all, I'd like to give you just kind of an overview of what BOCES is and what the district superintendency is all about, and then talk to you a little bit about BOCES services. Sue has a couple of comments she wants to make after that. And then Lisa Decker is going to walk you through the budgets, and then we're going to encourage you to come to our annual meeting on April 6th. We're still uncertain as to whether that's going to be in person or whether it's going to be remote, but with that, we're going to make that decision within the next few days. So you take a look at the folder in front of you on the right-hand side. I know there are a couple of small brochures. I'm going to ask you to go to the second document, not the brochures, but the first full page on the right-hand side. So something that looks a little bit like this, just kind of an organization chart. I know folks in school districts are pretty familiar with school structures. I just thought maybe the BOCES structure would help out a bit. So what we have here is right in the center, sort of in the bottom center, you have the deputy superintendent, that's Lisa Decker. She aligns pretty closely with what you would think of as a school business official, but she has some regional responsibilities as well because she works for BOCES. On the, I guess, the left-hand side is Assistant Superintendent for Instruction. That's Dr. Matt Williams. He's similar to Mr. Brewer, except for the BOCES, but he also has some regional responsibilities. But the thing that's a little bit different about BOCES is we have this third branch, which is the RIG, on the right-hand side here, Heather Mahoney. So the Mohawk Regional Information Center, I think you folks are fairly familiar with it. It's an entity that serves not only the 9 school districts in our BOCES, but 50 school districts across 4 different BOCES. So although there are 37 BOCES in the state, there are only 12 BOCES with RIGs. And so one of them is your BOCES. And that BOCES services also Oneida BOCES, Herkimer BOCES, and Jefferson Lewis BOCES. I just thought I'd familiarize you with that. Additionally, just up above that, that's me, Scott Boodleman, the district superintendent. So there's a little bit of a difference between a district superintendent and a school superintendent. District superintendents report right to the commissioner. In fact, it's a statutory thing that district superintendency has been in place since 1910. And basically, we're sort of the field agent for the commissioner. But then in addition to that, beginning in about 1948, they came up with this concept called BOCES, which basically means school districts can share services. And they said, who are you going to put in charge of BOCES? And they looked around and they said, well, we'll put it in the top and on the list of the district superintendency. So I just thought I'd give you that quick overview because BOCES are a little bit different than school districts. Approximately a little more than 700 school districts in the state, about 37 BOCES in the state. If you turn to the second document in your folder, it's management services. I'd like to share this with folks because it highlights our management services, but also it just kind of gives an overview of how BOCES works. But at BOCES, we have management services. We have central bus maintenance. So a lot of the school districts in the region use our school bus maintenance service. Business office services, cooperative bidding, facilities, school lunch, labor relations and legal services, policy development, Medicaid data entry, personnel and certification services, planning and grant writing, printing, risk management, and school communications. But if you look at the document that says management services, basically at the top, it's what I outlined before. BOCES provides a service when 2 or more districts requested. We don't provide a service for simply one district. We're not permitted to do that. We also don't provide services that districts don't ask for. We're not permitted to do that. We only do things that we're asked to do. We're market driven, basically, because if there's a demand, then we respond to that demand. We work with school superintendents on a monthly or weekly basis. Now it used to be monthly. We meet them every month, every week. But we work with them in a committee format to put together our services, develop a budget for those services. We benchmark our prices against the private sector, especially on the side of management services, because there actually is a comparable market. The turnover on the back of this document, it just kind of highlights our revenue sources. Actually, what are not our revenue sources? We don't tax. We don't have the ability to tax. We don't get state aid. You hear about BOCES aid, but that's really BOCES aid to school districts. So when school districts share services, they get BOCES aid in return. The funds that we don't spend at the end of the year, they all go back to the school districts in the same proportion that you use the services. We have to undergo the same auditing process that you do. We do cooperative bidding, and our staffing shrinks and grows every year depending on what the demand is, what the school districts request. So every year by May 1st, school districts decide what they want to participate in and what they do not want to participate in. So for those of us in BOCES, that's a little bit of a nice thing because we have this public sector feel, but we're also market driven. The schools can choose not to participate. Third document in your packet kind of highlights the services you're in right now. For example, you can see at the top, it looks like this, but without the scribbles on it. Third document says CTE, you've got about 254 students in CTE right now. Special education, 83 students from Rome. And under special ed, this is not really special ed, but special and alternative ed. But the Career Development Academy, that's something that's just started this year. I think you have approximately 28 kids. The Bright Futures Academy, about 17 kids starting in that program. And as you go through, you can see all the services that you're involved with. The next document is a more detailed summary of some of the services you participate in. So a minute ago, I indicated to you they had 254 CTE students. So if you look at this green document on the right-hand side, just partway down, you can see career and technical education, 254 students. And then on the left-hand side, you can see what the statistics were for last year. You had 1 student complete the 1 year. You had 112 students complete the 2-year completers. And 80 students received a technical endorsement, which means they completed a technical assessment, they submitted a portfolio, and they completed a senior project. You can see the honor roll statistics just below that. high honor, and honorable mention. And then on the right-hand side, you can see the CTE placement statistics for those students. So 34% pursued post-secondary education. 4% were employed in their CTE program, 18% were employed unrelated, 2% military, 42% other. So one thing about CTE is it exposes kids to skills, hands-on, meaningful work opportunities. Many students love their experience, but also choose to do something other than that which they study, because that's also instructive. I mean, I never would have guessed that I'd be doing this when I was 18. I certainly had other ideas. So it's nice for kids to get this opportunity to try things out early on in their career.
Scott, how, are you at full capacity? Like, do you fill your CTE sections?
It varies from section to section. I don't think we're at full capacity in all programs now, no.
I just, it begs me the question. Obviously, I think the country is starting to shift again,
Yes.
right? And remind kids that trades are good. And
Yes.
2 of my kids went through CTE and had, you know, just spectacular experiences. I have some of my friends' kids there now, and I think so much of what you do is important, but particularly this. And so what helps you decide whether you keep a program or add something new if there's a demand? I don't know what your capacity is like at this point.
It's simply what the school districts want. So basically, each fall, we come out to all the school districts, we meet with your superintendent, your business official, and we talk about projections, like what are their projected needs for the spring. And then by May 1st, they commit to a certain level of participation, and we do what we can to accommodate that participation by fall. So May 1st is really the deadline when people decide.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see. Also in this document, you can flip, I won't go all the way through it, but you can see there's the alternative and special education breakdown on the next page. 83 students, you can see where they fall. There's planning and grant writing, early childhood, staff development. I'll let you look at that at your leisure. I don't want to go through it. The next document is the brochure. Alternative and special education programs. So again, this is just a detail beginning on the left-hand panel. You can see at our tri-academies, we have an 811 program for K-6 kids. And on the third panel, we have that same program for 7-12 kids. The K-6 program, those students are located at the BOCES campus, but also at VBS. And then on the third panel, the kids are located at BOCES. In the middle, we have what's a 1211 program for K-12. That's at VBS. And then on the back side of this, you can see a couple of other programs, including the Career Development Academy and Bright Futures Academy, which is something I think Rome had a big part in putting together. Next document, a Propel program, a couple of postcards. One I think is for the parents, one is for kids. So this is a program that is not too far away from here, right? It's a partnership with MD. So students in this program can graduate from Rome on time. They get a CTE endorsement. And as they graduate from Rome with the CTE endorsement, they also have completed 1 year of MD. So all they have to do is attend 1 more year of MD. We can get an associate's degree. So that's our Propel program. Partnership with you, also partnership with Camden, partnership with VBS.
Is this the program where kids are not necessarily learning at RFA? Or?
I think they're learning right over here at MD, I believe.
Yeah, it's part-time. They're part-time and at RFA during the morning, depending on where they're at, junior, senior, and then they go. It's just like going to BOCES, except they're going to the MV campus for half the day also.
Do they have to start the program at 8:30?
Not Propel.
The right program?
No, you're
Or am I
thinking of
confusing
PTAC.
This one's
No, PTAC is the other program you're thinking
is
of.
eighth grade. This is how many kids do we have in this now?
I think we have over 20 now. Yeah, I'll have to double check the numbers. But I think we're close to 20, 25 now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I just love the varying pathways, so much ingenuity.
The PTEC program?
Yes, we do. We offer the PTAC
You do,
program.
okay.
Right now it's through HM BOCES, the
Okay.
PTAC. Yep.
Yeah, so PTAC is OHM. This is a little less restricted.
Okay.
Yeah, just, I guess my question about Propel and are we, is there, how are we recruiting students to those programs?
How are kids made
So-
aware?
Taking an active role in advising students that coming into their eligibility to let them know that this is an option for them, or how is
Sure,
that-
yeah.
is that, are things being sent to parents, or is there mailings? How's that working?
So we have open house opportunities that we try to recruit folks for. In fact, Mr. Brewer was a frequent attendee even back when he was in Morrisville. He'd come and walk with the kids. But in terms of getting it out to your student body specifically, it's something that we kind of provide information to the guidance counselor, your instructional side folks. We have not directly mailed from BOCES. We've just because, different school districts have different ideas about which kids they want to kind of provide different opportunities for. So, but we're happy to give as much as we can to your guidance counselor team. They're welcome to come see the program and welcome to call us. But I will say we do respect some level of discretion at the school district level.
I just, I feel even on a personal level, I had a job, graduate class, but I feel maybe I had known a little bit more about the program.
Yeah.
Would have been ideal for her. Just, I've learned about it too late, so I just want to make sure that other parents who might be in the same situation don't miss that opportunity. So just want to make sure because for whatever reason,
It makes sense to me. So this has not been around too long, so I'm not sure what the timing is of your kids, but I think you're going to see more and more of this. I mean, we've been reaching out to community colleges more and more, and school districts too, to try to actually talk about embedding programs not only in community employers and community colleges, but also in school districts. So.
Well, because the goal of a program like this, right, is to reach a student who might not otherwise go to college or who might.
Yeah.
So it's easy if you, I don't want to say it's easy, right? But it's your honor students, right? Like they know the
That's right.
AP and those things. This is different. This is the kids who need that leg up in career development and doing something that's interesting and engaging to keep them in school and get them graduated and get them a degree.
Yes.
So I agree with Joe that like the more that we can make people aware that these outstanding, and I will forever stand by, unfortunately, some people hear BOCES and they just cannot correlate what that might mean.
Yes.
And it's so many things. It's helping our at-risk kids. It's, giving different pathways. It's, career and technical education, along with the myriad of services. And with every year I've been on the board, I appreciate what you put in this folder and what it actually equates to more and more. So this program is huge to me. So I agree with Joe.
It's we certainly aren't excluding the pipeline kids. We're just
No, it's just another
wider.
option.
The door is wider. The door is open
Yes.
for everybody. It's really
Yes.
about equity.
And to Tanya's point, I don't think it's fair for BOCES at all,
Mhm.
honestly, but historically, when I was a student, the perspective was that BOCES was an area where you kind of were kids that were struggling in the school, the traditional school setting, which had to learn, and so it was more of that an idea. That's where quote unquote bad kids went, right? But it's so much more because you're getting these skills now at an early, a very early opportunity, 8th and 9th grade, to learn these skills that are in such high demand now, and giving them the opportunity to get a leg up there. And it is so much more than just historically was viewed as. So, and I appreciate the program as well. I think it's great that it offers opportunities to those kids.
Absolutely. Thanks. I was 20 years ago when I applied to BOCES, I thought, what's BOCES? So I was that person too. But it's really changed in the last several decades. And it's
Done a great job of that.
I love that the foundations has expanded to all of the kids, because the kids I know only in 11th and 12th grade could go over, and they were so excited to go over. But now in like 9th grade, they can go over. So they just love it. They
Yeah.
love going over it. They love being a part of something. And I think it's awesome that the teachers really push how much money you can make in these trades, and it takes some pressure off being pushed academically.
Mhm.
We still need to excel, in past and things like that, but I think it's important that they do something else as well. Not every kid is a college bound kid.
Right, and for the kinesthetic learner, I had one of those of my three, like for him to be able to put his hands on something and make those associations between what he was touching. He was never the sit in the chair and raise his hand kid, and that's what, to Anna's point, when you miss those kids by 11th grade, they are like school.
Yeah,
So getting them early is so crucial.
a lot of times by 11th grade, they know I either want to be here or I don't. So it's nice if you can catch them before.
Yeah.
I agree, the earlier the better.
Mhm.
Good.
That was part of my question of like, what is your capacity and were you to grow these, because your aid is limited by us, by what we choose,
Yes.
I'm trying to now make that correlation between what makes you say, I'm gonna add, a graphic design program, or I'm gonna, I think you have that, but you know what I mean? Like, what makes you say there's a need for this program, or how can we add another unique thing? Because I know that does vary BOCES by BOCES as well, based on,
Yes, yeah.
on need.
It's really, it's, you gotta look at us sort of as a cooperative, right? We're a collective. We really are just the school district. The two school districts are, that's who we are. So, it's the vision of the superintendents, it's the vision of the instructional leaders in particular, the folks on the facility side make it happen. I'm anticipating, probably a significant building project within a couple of years. And that will, of course, have to incorporate the vision for growth that you're describing. So it's unregional demand, basically. So, and I won't take a lot of your time, but the next book I see already flashing through it here. It's just outlining a lot of our CTE programs. It talks about articulation agreements, the high school credits that you get in each program, all the different CTE programs. Just some nice ones to look at. Allied Health is a favorite. There's Auto Tech. Those programs are embedded in the community. As you know, juniors attend at BOCES, and then they go out to in the community for their senior year. There's an engineering program you may want to check out. It's very popular. And after that, there's a document titled CTE Where Education Meets Industry. This is just a summary of the dual credits available through BOCES. After that, school communication service. So this is sort of like a public relations service. Districts involved in that service now are Canastota, Oneida, Stockbridge, Rome, Mount Markham, Madison, Camden, and of course BOCES. So Jill Pekarsky, long-term BOCES employee through the school communication service. I know she's out here quite a bit. Been here many years.
We love Jill.
Yeah. Document about the RIC. I talked to you a little bit about the Mohawk Regional Information Center. We're really one of the leading RICs in the state. I've got to beat my chest a little bit about that. Our director, Heather Mahoney, has been the leader of all the RICs, several different terms statewide. She's probably the most senior RIC director in the state. Next, Labor Relations and Policy Service. Another quality service. Justin Murphy is the director of that, and he leads 4 attorneys. I was born in that service. Next, staff development, overview of their services. And then just an outline of some of the professional development opportunities available through staff development. And finally, what was on the top of your folder, just a couple of social emotional learning opportunities that are being provided from our early childhood division. So that's just a quick, you're obviously going to have to take more time to absorb it on your own, but it's just a quick overview of our program. What I do is Sue wanted to make a couple of comments, and then Lisa will get to the really interesting stuff that I do.
You always give that to her.
Lucky, I guess.
Short shot.
If you have questions, just let us know.
Each of our 9 component districts obviously has a representative from the respective school districts, and I am your representative. I know many of you, some I don't. I am actually up for election again this year, so we serve 3-year terms. I filled in the first time I left these seats because I was on the board for 6 years. I served on the Rome School Board. 2 years as president, so I do know exactly how you feel and how you do it. And I carried that forward when I got chosen to go to BOCES. Your representative actually passed away, and I was asked to fill in for her remaining term, and then I have served 2 full terms after that. So I'm up again this year for your consideration, and I certainly do acknowledge the responsibility of representing you, and I take that very seriously. And 2 years or 3 years ago, when I served as president, I also served on the Rome Chamber Board. And I think one of the things that bothered me the most, going from the school district Board of Education to a BOCES Board of Education, was I didn't exactly what Tanya and Joe were saying. I don't think we were well represented in the community. I don't think people really understood how BOCES had evolved over the course of time. When I sat years ago and on the board, I have 3 sons. When they graduated from high school, their road was out of here because there wasn't anything here. Now the road coming into Rome is wide open. And I really do think that was my objective when I got on the board, making sure people understood what we could do for the communities in collaboration. And we worked very diligently as a board. We've gone to our administrative staff and said, these are the things we expect and we want and we need. And I think we've done a good job of that. And I will just say part of the evolution of that, I would say, is the 2 programs we have right now that are embedded in the communities. Our auto mechanics go to Nye Ford and Oneida, correct? And our auto body technology students go to Davidson Ford, Davidson Chevrolet here in Rome. And speaking to those businesses, they get the choice then of who they can choose to work for them after they see how they are. So it's a perfect way of taking our students and seeing them in a real job, seeing how they do it, and sitting on the Rome Chamber Board. I can't tell you how many businesses have told us, it's spoken about it, and are very anxious to have more of our students working within their environments in that exact thing. So I just wanted to introduce myself and tell you how hard we are trying to work to represent all of Rome and all of the communities around us and keep our students right here with us to help us grow. So I thank you, and I certainly respect everything that you do. Because like I said, I sat in your seats for 6 years, so I know exactly what it's like.
You shared some very nice insights with some people recently, Sue, and I just wanted to tell you I appreciate that. You bring some nice objectivity and experience, and so thank you for that.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right, so I'll finish it off with the numbers. The materials on the left, the proposed administrative and capital direct budget for next year. So I'll start with the blue sheet, and that's our BOCES administrative budget. So certain elements are required to be in the budget. That would be our administrative staff, so our central office staff and clerical support, as well as our business office staff and any of our clerks in the business office. And of course, the fringe benefits, health insurance, and so on that go along with those positions. We have a small line for equipment, supplies, and software. We budget for interest charges in the event that we have to take out a land to borrow. Other expenses include any mileage, meeting, workshop expenses for any of those positions, as well as our board meetings. So you'll notice that, we try to keep our costs, in line from year to year. The one line item this year that I'd like to just discuss with you is the auditor. So just as you are required to have an external audit, so it's BOCES. Back in 2006-07, there was an internal audit requirement for schools and BOCES. So we did an internal audit through 2014 when there was an exemption for certain BOCES and school districts if they met certain criteria. So at that point, we took that out of the budget and we did not do an internal audit. And now that requirement has come back for BOCES. And so you'll see that the line item for auditors does include that expense back in the budget this year. We have membership fees to organizations like School Boards Association
and the Council for School Superintendents. These are groups that provide us advocacy avenues for the whole region. There are contractual expenses, again, similar to what you have in your budget for GASB 45 compliance, 403B compliance, banking fees, online application support. Legal fees are in this budget, as well as a line item for superintendent's meeting. We have postage and advertising for any legal notices required. And then on the bottom, you'll see a section internal charges. So just as you know, the district's employee services from BOCES, each budget stands on its own, and we purchase services for BOCES as well. So we participate in the planning and grant writing service, as well as administrative technology support. So for our financial system. So we also participate in RIC services. So you see on the bottom, the 21-22 current budget is $1,459,935. The proposed 22-23 budget is $1,517,676, or a 3.9% proposed increase for next year on the direct expenses. On the back of the document, unlike a school district, BOCES is required to show all of our liability for the retiree health insurance expense in the administrative budget. So in Part B, you'll see the retiree health insurance. We're anticipating 18 retirees for next year. So that budget with the including the retiree health insurance line is $5,773,568. Proposed is $6,232,373. And then finally, you see the revenue sources to cover the budget. So we have some miscellaneous revenue. We get some interest and indirect costs from grants, our retiree drug subsidy revenue. We also have a collections in advance account, which, as you'll notice, will completely offset that retiree health insurance line. So we worked with our auditors years ago to set up this system where we had a year's worth of retiree health insurance set aside for that. And finally, the local component district contribution. So our 9 component districts currently contribute $1,156,861 as a region. Proposed for next year is $1,190,410, or a 2.9% increase. Down below, you see the allocation of our region. So we have 9 component districts. Just to talk a little bit about BOCES aid. So for these BOCES services, aidable BOCES services, when you spend money on BOCES services, there's a reimbursement method where, based on your property value and the number of students in your district, you have an aid ratio. And so based on your share of any expenses in any of the BOCES programs, you get reimbursed in the following year on those expenses. So the allocation is based on our WADA, which is resident weighted average daily attendance. So that's based on prior year's attendance numbers that are submitted by your district to the state education department. So in column 1, you see the current regional, our WADA is 15,198. We're dropping regionally for next year down to 14,489. For Rome, you have 5462 for your RWADA figure this year, and 5326 for next year. The percent share for Rome this year is 35.9% that you represent as our region, and next year goes to 36.8. Converting that to the dollar share for the component contribution, this year Rome contributes $415,764. Next year, $437,582. Column 4 is that aid ratio that I referred to. So Rome's aid ratio for this year's services is 83.9. For next year goes up a little bit, 84.1. The estimated aid on this year's administrative services is $240,342. Goes up to $249,319 for next year. And then so the local share after the aid is received is $175,422 for this year and $188,262 for next year. Any questions on anything in that budget or the allocation?
In the column where you have the expenditures in the front, is that the current budget that was approved for the entire 2021
Yes,
school year? Okay, and then the second column would represent what's been expended to date?
I'm sorry. So the first column was 2021 last year, what was approved, and then 20, the expenditures is where we landed last year.
Oh, okay.
So you actually see that the revenue exceeded expenditure. So as Scott mentioned earlier, anything that is not spent in the budget goes back.
Okay.
So that as a region, we gave back about 41,000 out of the administrative budget. Now we had lower expenditures and travel meeting, I think we all experienced that. So there was some unexpended funds last year.
Okay, so that third column is.
Right now.
Is the expenditures right now, or is that?
That's the budget right now. Anything else on? Okay, the second document, the green document, is the rent and capital budget. The BOCES rent some space from our component district, so we have some classrooms. Our allied health classroom is in Oneida. Our equine science this year is out in VBS. And Tanya, I think this speaks to kind of what you were getting at. So we're getting creative with, how we're utilizing our space and partnering with our schools to create opportunities to maybe move some programs and expand and reconfigure. So we have a rent committee that's composed of 3 of our superintendents. And they set the rental rates for the upcoming year. So that's the first part of that budget. And the second piece is our facilities project. So back in 2003, the Rossetti underwent a major renovation, and that renovation was financed through DASNY bonds. And we're coming up on the last payment for that DASNY bond next year. This year we did some HVAC upgrades. And again, as Scott mentioned, we're looking at some security upgrades, some space reconfiguration. We've been working on HVAC and ventilation. And the total budget for this year is $1,738,700, and that remains flat for 22-23. And again, down below, in a similar fashion as the administrative budget, that's how the rent and capital is allocated. So you see for Rome, again, the 35.9% regionally goes to 36.8. You get your aid ratio, and then the local share this year is 100,604, and estimated for next year is 101,621. Any questions on that?
So presented space, you have like leases?
Yes.
On that space, so you
Yeah.
can-
So most are 1-year leases. So the allied health, the equine, we have 27 special ed classrooms over at BVS. We have a 10-year lease actually over at Costello. So we have our bus garage and some office space over at the Costello Center in Oneida. So that's a little bit longer lease.
Most of our landlords are school districts.
Different animal.
Under the projects, the HVAC and the safety and security, are those paid in cash or are those borrowings also?
So those we have been doing year to year, just 1-year projects and attacking one at a time.
Okay.
But as Scott mentioned, now that we're coming up on the end of that DASNY payment, we are looking at a larger project and probably will be borrowing for that in the future. Anything else?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
We're moving right along to our consent agenda. Pages 2 through 4. Resolution to accept the consent agenda. Upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the consent agenda be accepted by the Board of Education. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Ms. McGurl. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 5. Finance. Action item number 1, resolution to appoint Rome City School District Deputy Treasurer. Resolved that Christine Sullivan be appointed as Rome City School District Deputy Treasurer, interim, at a pay of rate commensurate with the bargaining unit, overtime provision, effective January 31st, 2022. I move the resolution. Mr. Malachi, any discussion?
Can I get clarification on that? When we appointed the last deputy treasurer, we said there was no stipend or difference. So can you clarify the rate of pay language in this?
She would need to do that. There's things that need to be signed off. It would be done outside the regular workday. She works over in employee benefits. So it's a backup, whereas the former deputy treasurer worked upstairs in the business office. She was already located in the business office as a position.
And we don't have someone else within that office right now that would be, I guess, a more similar alignment as the prior deputy treasurer.
No, my understanding is that with the vacancy in that position, going to Ms. Sullivan, having her do that, it's just as a backup and it's minimal at this point.
That's true. The rate of pay commensurate with the bargaining unit, that's just what this individual is getting paid now, is that correct?
Correct.
It's not any bump.
There's no change. It would just be, if needed, it's overtime.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Yeah, aye or nay? Carried.
That's for me.
Action item 2, resolution to accept the internal audit risk assessment for 2021-22. Resolved that upon the recommendation of superintendent of schools, the internal audit risk assessment report for 2021-22 be accepted by Board of Education. I move the resolution.
Second.
By Mr. Hagerty. Any discussion? This was reviewed in finance and audit, I guess probably audit, I guess, in this one.
2 meetings ago, right?
I think
We did it again, though.
we reviewed it again.
But it was the same material, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Just more of a final. type
Okay.
thing.
Yeah.
thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Got some reports there, got to find my paperwork. Okay, we met this past Tuesday. Yeah. The audit committee met first. We just keep you folks apprised of what's going on. We're working on a charter for the audit committee, and I think we're to the point where we just ask them legal to give us a last review before we adopt it. We talked about what focus area for 21-22 we wanted to address, and the audit committee recommends the purchasing area. I just want to get consensus, and you folks for that.
I think that would be appropriate. Given prior conversations that we've had in finance, I think that seems.
Mhm. And then we reviewed the internal audit and external audit draft RFPs. Those two services were in effect from 2019 to 2022. So this will be effective for July 1 going forward. And so we haven't approved anything or forwarded to the board yet. And there were some one-cap reports that we're going to get talk about next meeting of the audit committee. Moving over to the finance side, we talked about the tax cap. Right now it's projected at 4.56%, which it's a little alarming, but we don't anticipate being anywhere near that for this budget. Moving over the latest 2022-23 state aid runs, and it's looking okay so far. Dave gave us the bid schedule for the RFP. That's where I came up with the internal audit and the external audit dates from. We reviewed the furniture consultant RFP draft, so that's moving forward. We, as always, go over our multi-year financial plan that's being developed. It hasn't been finalized yet, but it's being developed. And then our treasurer's report, we should have December's, it's almost done. In January, we should have by the end of it. And our next committee meeting is Tuesday, March 10th at 10 a.m. First audit and then finance. Questions? Facilities, Mr. Hagerty.
Okay, facilities has not met recently. We discussed this earlier that we will be meeting next Tuesday, and we'll try to cover the current status of the energy performance contracts and the current ongoing capital improvement project, which had 3 phases to it, as you'll probably remember. And the final phase, which is to be completed, we'll probably get some more detail on that. And I think that will probably take in most of it. Maybe talk a little bit about the redistricting work, since that's, closely related to what we're doing under the facilities. Obviously, the status of the different facilities and what the work that's going on in the facilities is important as we look at the way forward.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hagerty.
I just have a quick question on that one. Can we make a note? Obviously, spring sports are going to be starting next month. I think we're all going to want to know like how the track endured the winter and if we'll be ready to use that. And I think it's important that we continue the conversations about what we're going to do with the facilities at the stadium to be able to support the continued use through the spring, summer, and to be ready for next fall for use of that facility.
Yeah, that's a little more extensive, but
it's an important conversation for facilities and to not lose sight of, because the time will slip away from us, given that it's February already. We need a plan.
It'll be first home game.
Huh?
It'll be the first home game for the football team before we know it.
Yes, it will. It actually will. And lacrosse is coming and track, and so that, that site will be busy again. And we need to be prepared.
Anything further on those? Educational programs, Dr. Fontana.
Okay, luckily we have no agenda items, but Chris and I and Tanya, we listened to a great webinar on curriculum development and adoption today and how to handle all the different changes that are taking place, not just in our area, but in the country. It was very informative. We got some good resource guides. I think they're just going to help us, and I think the information we learned today is going to help us really, fine tune our curriculum. It's going to tie into our redistricting conversation. So all in all, it was I think we're moving in a really good direction. I'll just give a quick update. In the third grades, we have about 19 students involved. I don't know if you're going to meet with them tomorrow. That was still so we're working strong on this. The state approved us. We're going to hit the seals for those kids. So we're in good shape there. And yeah, that's about it, right? Would you add anything more? We're gonna get the STAR stuff next meeting.
We're working on, we're
Yeah,
working on
so-
gathering the STAR data
Yeah.
for the winter.
Yeah, these meetings have been, really good and really helpful, but I think I have to echo what Karen said today. I was blown away by the presenter, the superintendent from Albany. I think she brought up some very important points about how we can be more engaging. And I think the most fascinating thing to me, and I think that's where I was kind of going with the BOCES questions, was they do student surveys to ask what kinds of things their kids want to be learning. And, what are you taking advantage of? What are you not? And I think last year we had a conversation, right, about like section load reports and what are kids taking and what are kids not, and what means a lot. And, Alana, you can probably speak to that as a high school student of what do we need more of? What do kids not know enough about as, Mr. Malachi and I questioned with BOCES. So that was enlightening to me. And Joe brought that point up too, having our parents know what is offered. Like I kind of had not really so much into the technical and data side of this, but to Dr. Fontana's point, this is what the heart conversations have been about, is student outcomes and how we make them more successful learners. So it was great timing, and I appreciate, Chris, that you made sure that we, as many of us as possible, participated in that.
Our next meeting is March 7th.
March 7th, correct. 4:30.
Oh, I thought, I was thinking March is pretty far away, but it's not.
It's not,
so-
no. It'll be here before we know it.
January drags and February, you're like, what?
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Fontana. Chief Operations, Mr. Malachi.
Action item one, resolution to appoint instructional personnel probationary, resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, Board of Education hereby appoints the following instructional personnel probationary, Samantha Randall, district-wide quote, I'm not sure what HP is.
Homemade.
I'm sorry.
It's a home base. Home base.
And Denti, registered nurse, 29.70 per hour, effective date, 2/27/22 through 10/26/22. And Christine Kelly Joy, teacher assistant, 19,226.52 prorated from February 3, 2022 to February 2, 2025. I move the resolution.
Second by Ms. Reddick. Any discussion?
I'm sorry, I missed people operations, so I just want to, where does that bring us on our nursing needs?
Well, we always need nurses. We're filled for the time being.
Okay, so this, I know we had a conversation previously about some tasks that they were really wanting to get to earlier in the year on the safety committee. Mr. Menz is not here tonight, but some routine items like height and weight and eyes and ears that they were not getting to because of COVID demands. You know, that's really taken a lot out of
And that's
so
calming
many.
down and now we're able to.
Yeah, so
we'll
now
take care of
adding that
business.
staff is so helpful. So
Absolutely.
the combination of coming on that COVID decline, we hope, and adding staff. So
Yeah,
I
we're
appreciate your
fortunate,
hard work in finding us those people.
That's Mr. And a great deal is Mr. Stamboli. He gets on it the minute those folks, we get a pool ready. Mike wants the coffers filled, so.
And the nurse's contract is a different probationary period, correct?
Yes.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Action item two, resolution to transfer staff, resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, Board of Education hereby approves the following transfer of staff as listed in the agenda at page 6, action item 2, I move the resolution.
Second by Dr. Fontana. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Action item 3, resolution to involuntarily transfer staff, resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby approves the following involuntary transfer of staff. Mia Cushman from food service helper, Stroud, 6.5 hours per day, to food service helper RFA at 6.5 hours per day, effective date January 31, 2022. I move the resolution.
Second. Second by Dr. Fontana. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Action item 4, resolution to appoint the non-instructional personnel probationary, resolved that upon the recommendation of superintendent of schools, Board of Education hereby appoints the following non-instructional personnel probationary as listed at page 7, action item 4, and move the resolution.
Second by Dr. Fontana. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, carried.
Action item 5, resolution to correct individual employment agreements, whereas the district employs Patricia Bennett as a confidential executive secretary with terms and conditions of employment set forth in an employment agreement, and whereas the district employs Katrina Sullivan as a confidential secretary with terms and conditions of employment set forth in an employment agreement, and whereas the district has identified a discrepancy between the employment agreements for Mrs. Bennett and Ms. Sullivan and the employment agreements for other non-represented employees, in that Mrs. Brement and Ms. Sullivan's employment contracts did not consistently credit them with time served to the district as opposed to time served in a particular title for purposes of longevity payments, and whereas the district wishes to clarify the terms and conditions of Mrs. Bremet's and Mrs. Sullivan's employment to reflect that longevity payments are earned based on time served in the district and not exclusively in a particular title. Now, therefore, it is resolved that 1, all employment agreements for Mrs. Bremen and Ms. Sullivan are deemed amended to reflect that when longevity is earned based upon entirety of employment with the district, not exclusive to a particular title. That should probably be 2. So 3. A copy of the resolution shall be placed in Mrs. Bremen's and Ms. Sullivan's personnel file. Again, there should be 3 and not 4. The superintendent shall direct the appropriate employees to implement the terms of this resolution to the extent necessary. And again, this should be 5. This resolution shall take effect immediately. I move the resolution.
Sorry, a second.
Second by Dr. Fontana. Any discussion?
And just to
For the.
reflect the proper numbering of the.
Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
And six, resolution to address resignation date, resolve that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby adjusts the following resignation date. Brenna Kosicki, Director of Sport Learning, from March 2022 to February 9th, 2022. I move the resolution.
Signed by Ms. Reddick. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, carried.
Next item 7, resolution to appoint non-instructional personnel provisional. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby appoints the following non-instructional personnel provisional. Amber Preskin, ECP, senior office specialist, salary $34,229.17, effective date February 8th, 2022, and move the resolution.
Second by Dr. Fontana. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
May I say one thing?
Okay, yeah.
Amber's been in this position. She was a senior office specialist at Staley, and then she had moved once the previous senior office specialist came back. So when Staley shut down, she came over to ECP and has been helping out. When we lost the senior office specialist there, it's a natural fit to have her in that role. So she does an excellent job for us.
Thank you. Yeah. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Action item 8, resolution to increase hours. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby increases the following hours. Tracy Bird, Remillard Bridge, food service helper, from 6 hours per day to 6.5 hours per day, effective date February 11, 2022. And Tamara Aylesworth, Bellamy food service helper, 3.75 hours per day to 6 hours per day, and effective date February 11, 2022. And move the resolution.
Second by Ms. Reddick. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Action item 9, resolution to accept retirements. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby accepts with regret the retirement of the following individuals: William Hauser, social studies teacher at RFA, effective date June 25, 2022. Bill Hughes, custodial worker at RFA, effective date March 18, 2022. And Felicia House, teacher assistant at Density, effective February 1, 2022. And move the resolution.
Second by Dr. Fontana. Any discussion? Thank you for your service and best of luck in retirement. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Action item 10, resolution to create positions. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby creates the following position: principal account clerk in the business office. I move the resolution.
Second by Ms. Reddick. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Action item 11, resolution to abolish a position. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby abolishes the following position: senior account clerk maintenance. Move the resolution.
Second by Dr. Fontana. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. And these, I guess, these take effect immediately or
We have to go through the posting, but yes, they take
Okay.
effect immediately.
as soon as you get the bodies, okay.
So the one that we just abolished was
No
just
one was sitting.
vacated, right?
It was
Attrition.
vacated, correct,
Okay.
Some of the duties are going to be assumed by.
correct.
But then there's still another senior account clerk where the deputy treasurer was. That's vacant.
Yes,
Okay,
different position.
right, but,
Yes.
but there, so if we were to look at our postings for Rome, you'll see the senior account clerk, which is that finance position. And then we'll see the principal account clerk, which is the position we've been discussing.
Payroll,
Okay,
correct.
perfect. Okay, thank you.
Action item 12, resolution to appoint extracurricular personnel. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby appoints the following extracurricular personnel as listed in the agenda at page 9, action item 12. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Dr. Fontana. Any discussion? I believe this is for the musical straw, right?
Correct.
Do we have a date for that
Who
yet?
gave you that? Who gave you that, John?
Huh?
Who gave you that?
Well, yeah, it's new. That's like the fire training.
Oh.
They weren't, this was not planned.
It's planned for May, Mr. Nash.
Okay.
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Okay, as far as committee reports go, I do have my chicken scratch notes here that I'll go through, but anyone who really wants keen insight on what happened at the meetings, Shelley provides those meetings and we're putting together the minutes, and they are available in our board meeting. Yeah, I'll take a look at those, but some notes that some of the discussion that was had at the personnel committee, which was surprisingly and pleasantly brief, but very informative and effective. We had some discussion about the director of supported learning. The posting closed yesterday. All right, and we had what, 10 online and 1 internal?
Yes, sir.
Candidate. All right, so we expect those interviews to be conducted soon and hopefully have that position filled very soon as well. All right.
We hope so.
The district clerk position that we created and spent a lot of time discussing, presently it's at a 40% hourly, or I'm sorry, 40% position. Why am I not seeing this?
I think it's
Point four. Point
Point
four.
four.
It's easier to do
He's got it
percent.
here, 40%.
Okay.
So 0.4. We were gonna put that out there to see if any takers, if there would be anybody that would be interested in that position at that rate. So far, we haven't had any, right? But we
Correct.
decided we're gonna leave it out there until our next meeting. And if it continues with no applicants, then we're talking about moving it up to a 0.6. Is that right?
Correct, sir.
Okay, some of the other things that we discussed were on the agenda tonight, and we voted on them. There was a discussion about fingerprinting, so the comments earlier, the public comments earlier were somewhat timely and serendipitous, I guess. There was some talk that and discussion that we would to make certain positions more accessible to persons that maybe couldn't afford the fingerprinting, that we would provide the upfront cost for that and then allow the employee to pay it back out of their paychecks over time. And so that was a policy that we were talking about amending. And I think that we were all in favor of that. And that would be helpful in attracting candidates to our district. Let's see. We had a long discussion about the business office position, and we also agreed that it would be helpful to get those positions filled, and there are Martha is interested in moving over, right?
Yes.
From business to with the transportation.
To move over to the to maintenance, to work with not just working with the business office over there, working with maintenance, working with buildings and grounds, also working with transportation, and she has a background in purchasing.
So that is moving forward, and those changes are being made, and hopefully streamlining services, saving us a little money, and not still, but still not losing anything in terms of production and services that are being provided. We also talked about how one of the silver linings of COVID has been that there have been no online offerings for people to advance or to allow them to take graduate courses to advance themselves within the district, and that people have been taking advantage of that, and that it's been occurring at a lower cost. Is that?
It has for our credit reimbursement, we have annual adjustments in October and February. From 3 years ago, we worked to narrow the scope of what individuals can take online, because those salary credits over time are quite costly to the district. And there's some universities that go out and market master's level credits for a very small amount of money. So we worked with the RTA to reduce some of those offerings to ensure that it's accredited schools in New York State. And from 3 years ago, we're down about 60% of our expenditures as we do our salary adjustments. We have individuals still continuing to develop themselves professionally. It's just not doing so in a manner that may be somewhat arbitrary. So,
And then we also got an update with respect to Upbeat, which if you recall was a group that gave us a really good presentation about essential services that they can provide the district in terms of exit interviews, climate surveys, and among other things, consultation. Something that I think we were all excited about after hearing their presentation. Apparently, there's been a contract that's been forwarded, it's a 2-year contract, and I think that's being reviewed now. And we'll probably have hopefully something, if not the next committee meeting, but the one after that. And we'll be able to get that in place, hopefully sooner rather than later. But I think everybody was really impressed with their work, and we're anxious to get them on board and meeting with our staff. And I think that was pretty much the balance of our conversations at the meeting, and it was productive and economical.
thank you, sir.
So our next committee meeting is not going to be the usual 2-week spread. It's actually going to be on February 17th, which is listed here as a Tuesday, but it's actually a
It's
Thursday,
actually
so that needs to
Thursday.
be changed on the agenda. And again, we did that because of the break. We didn't want to have a meeting during the break, so we went ahead and scheduled one into the break. So those of you that are interested, note the date change.
When will we know if it's tentative? Or not tentative? I guess.
By Tuesday, we'd be able
By
to
Tuesday,
identify,
okay.
absolutely.
Right.
We'll email the whole group to share if
Let
there's
us
any
know.
agenda items and or it's necessary to meet.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Malachi. Policy, Ms. Davis.
No updates at this point. We just need to, can you do a doodle poll can you find out from Peter how much time we need for the board docs training? And a doodle poll for when we might be able to do that. I'm gonna say after break. And we can probably just push our next meeting to that as well. We have a lot on our plate next week already. And everyone deserves their break. Anna will kill me.
Yes, I will.
She's gonna be on a cruise.
Yeah. Be on my boat.
So yeah, at this point, I have some follow-up items from the minutes, and thank you, Patty. Those minutes were extremely helpful. So, we have a few items we're wrapping up, but the last determination was that one, we are about to migrate our policy manual into board docs in the correct format. I do need to, Patty, she needs everything that we've done in 0s and 1000s. Courtney, our person, because they haven't been going onto our new manual. So anything we worked on of transitioning, she's in need of. But then she will upload our next 2 sections, 2000 and 3000, into board docs so that we are working, we get trained, and then we start editing our next 2 sections that are part of our transition right in board docs. So hopefully it will be training and dive right in so that it's relevant and we start applying it. So that's all I would be looking for.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Davis. Miscellaneous business. Resolution determining the appeal of a student disciplinary matter. Whereas the Board of Education of the Rome City School District, the board, received a written appeal from a student disciplinary matter arising under the district's code of conduct policy. And whereas the board has considered the matter in executive session to protect the privacy of a student's education records and personally identifiable information under federal and state law, pursuant to a motion made and approved under Public Officers Law, Section 108(3), during the regular business meeting of the board on January 27th, 2022. Now therefore be it resolved that having heard the appeal presented by a parent guardian person in parental relationship of a student, and the response to the administration and due deliberation having been had, the appeal is denied, and the decisions of the building administration and the superintendent of schools are affirmed. And is further resolved that the president of the Board of Education or the district clerk as designee of the president is thereby authorized to prepare a letter consistent with the resolution and with the deliberations and executive session to be prepared, signed, and mailed to the appellant, and to include in that letter language appropriate to inform the appellant of the time and manner in which an aggrieved party may file an appeal of this decision to the New York State Commissioner of Education. It is further resolved that this resolution shall take effect immediately. I move the resolution.
Second,
Seconded by Ms. McGurl. Any discussion?
I just have a question. I know when we had our discussion, there was a caveat that the board had wanted to request of the superintendent pertaining to this. Do any of us know if that was followed through on? I know we had a hectic meeting that night and discussed a lot, and I don't know that we finished
wait, what? I don't remember.
some intervention or social work evaluation.
Oh, like outside of,
Right.
So when they
That we were
go-
gonna uphold this, but that we didn't want to have
to
this,
just leave her.
right, we didn't just want that student to fall through the cracks. So I just want to make sure that we,
Go ahead, Pete.
This is not an open session conversation, just wanted to provide warning to folks. I'll follow up with John on what that request was. I don't think that anything came my way from the deliberation that the board had with Don that night. And or if Don was going to follow up with me, Don did not.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I have to abstain because I wasn't in attendance. So I have to abstain.
So 7 ayes and 1 abstention. Motion, the resolution carries. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move the
Any old
resolution.
business?
There's none. but I don't
And
see
no
any
other
evidence.
executive session?
Anybody have any old business?
No, should we just make a statement that we've received 6?
Sure, sure. And we received six applicants for the vacant position. 3 former board members and 3 new individuals. And we will be interviewing them next week.
Hopefully we'll have a decision soon.
And with the goal is to have that person appointed on February 28th if we can come to a consensus. Thank you for reminding me about that.
Okay.
Motion adjourned.
Second.
Raj Davis, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Thank you, sir.